Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you guys a process video on how I made these holiday cards using the adorable Your Next Stamp Hammie Holiday Fun, as well as a couple of diamond dies, the Swirly Flourish die and the Pine Branch die. So first of all, I started with a couple of scraps of green cardstock and some Tim Holtz Distress ink in Mowed Lawn and Pine Needles. And I just wanted to blend on some color onto these scraps so that when I use these scraps with the dies, that the die cuts would actually have a little bit of color variation. So it went on pretty loosely. I just wanted to make sure that it was blended nicely. And first of all, for this lighter green cardstock, I'm using the Swirly Flourish. And I thought this would be a kind of more artistic kind of pine branch bow. And you'll see how I end up using this, but I thought this flourish had some nice substance to it, and it could be kind of a more artsy kind of tree bough rather than a literal pine branch. I just wanted to give you guys a couple of extra options rather than having to always have on hand exactly what I have in my stash. So I love this pine branch die. It's so intricate and detailed, and I've die cut this out twice so that I can kind of make a more luscious, thick looking tree branch. So I'll combine a couple of those. And just so you know what I'm using, that's a We Are Memory Keepers Quick Stick Precision Pickup and Placement Tool. And for gluing these intricate pieces on, I love the Art Glitter Glue with the fine tip nozzle. This glue dries clear, so even though I'm getting a little bit off the edges of these really intricate pine needles, it will totally dry clear. Now for these swirly flourishes, I'm using the glue to kind of make up my own pine branch looking element here. So I'm going to combine a few of them, and you're watching me as I kind of futz with the placement of the second bough. At the end of the day, I end up only really showing a little bit of one and most of another flourish, and everything else I end up cutting away because I end up mangling my card front. But I will get to that later when I end up showing you the final card, which is much smaller than I had originally envisioned when I did this A2 size card front. So I'm futzing with it. You see me placing 3 little flourishes, and I'm cutting off the excess so that it doesn't hang off the card front. And then I'm ready to move on to my next step, which is stamping. I decide I'm gonna stamp out this cute little Hammie in the ornament with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. I end up having to stamp it out twice to get a clean, crisp image. And now I'm gonna do some simple Copic coloring. I thought the brassy or gold kind of hanging mechanism at the top would look good in some yellow-orange colors. And for this little Hammie, I've decided to give him some black or warm gray spots. I decide that his cheeks could use a little rosy glow, as well as the inside of his ears. So I'm just doing simple little circles there. I'm not even worrying about blending that out. And I decide to give him a little bit of a shadow with a warm, really light warm gray. For this ornament, I decide I'm gonna do kind of a corally red color. So I'm starting with an R22, and I like that that's a really light prawn color. I think that's what they call it. And I'm not even worried about coloring outside the lines because I'm going to be fussy cutting all of this. For more of the shadowed area, I'm going up one step in the color family. So I'm doing an R24, and that has a little bit of an orangey hue, but I know I'm covering up a lot of that with the next R27. And I'm not worried too much about blending because I know I'm going to go even darker. But I think for the next step, I'm going to color the inside of the ornament, and I decide I'm going to use the darkest red here, R29. But I don't like how it's so close to the R27, so I've decided I'm going to add a gray, so a neutral gray. This is an N3. I think darken that nicely, and it kind of took it to the next level of darkness with that shadow. Now I'm using a Uniball Signo white gel pen. This flows really nicely. I use both this white gel pen as well as the Jelly Roll white gel pen. This one has a little bit of a heavier flow, so I knew I wanted to make a kind of shine or highlight element. So I'm gonna just doodle that in. Essentially, I'm going a little bit thicker there because I want the shine to be a little bit thicker, a little more noticeable. I add 2 little dots on one side and 1 dot on the other, just as a kind of more cartoony version of highlighting. It's not very realistic, obviously, but I like that odd number of little dots to kind of add that, the endpoints of that highlight. I'm also going to add highlighting to the hanging piece. So I'm following the curve of the top of this little hanging piece at the top of the ornament. I'm following it on the side of the hanging piece as well. And I think that adds a nice highlight. I'm using my Copic multi-liner. This is a 0.1 point, and I'm just adding some thickness to the actual hanging portion. It was just a line, and that didn't seem realistic to me, so I just doodled that in, colored that up, and now I am going to be fussy cutting this ornament. It's really simple. But as I've mentioned before, I love this Fiskars spring-loaded reverse scissors. So you, instead of opening and closing, you just kind of close. It's a spring mechanism, and it helps, especially when my arthritis is acting up. For this piece, I'm also edging the fussy cut piece with a Memento Tuxedo black marker. And now to kind of figure out how I'm going to place this, I'm actually punching a hole with an embroidery needle, because I want to make sure that the baker's twine that I used for the faux hanging of this ornament hangs straight and taut and not loose. And so I punched those 2 holes with an embroidery needle. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get the baker's twine through that needle, the eye of the needle, but the needle eye is so small that I end up reaching for this little gizmo that helps you thread needles. You poke it through the eye of the needle, and then it's got a loop, and you can pull it through the eye of the needle with that little tool. And I'm putting the baker's twine through the card front, but I actually realized I have to come from the back so that the baker's twine goes up the front from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom. And I'm just going to cut off the excess and secure the back, secure on the back of the card front with some, Scotch tape, and I'll cut off the excess right here. And that is the hanging mechanism. And I really like how straight and taut that looks like in real life. And I've decided I'm going to tie a little bow with some red satin ribbon. Sorry, I'm off camera a little bit here, but I'm just doing a regular tied bow there. And before I attach the ornament, I'm going to pop that up on double-sided foam adhesive just to give it a little bit of dimension. And I'm going to pull off the release paper and put that into position. And now I'm going to cut off the little tails of the satin ribbon and adhere that with some Beacon 3-in-1 glue. I love this glue. It's great for fabric, wood, paper. It's great for mixed media, and it was perfect to attach that. Now I was thinking that the card front was looking a little bit plain, so I wanted to use a die to cut down the edges and add a little decorative border, but I really couldn't because I'd already added the baker's twine and the double-sided foam adhesive. So I ended up using a Martha Stewart punch, but as you can see, I had to cut down the left card quite a bit because the punch wouldn't go through the layers of the bow, the swirls, as well as the card front. So I ended up doing what you saw. I cut it way down, but I think it still came out looking cute. Wanted to show you the front and the insides. The green card here I made a little pocket inside so that it has a gift card, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed this process video. Sorry for the abbreviated end there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.